To silence a scandal, Millionaire CEO hired a fake wife, but she stole his reputation and soul. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The rain in New York was relentless that evening, turning the glass towers of Manhattan into blurred silhouettes. Inside one of those towers, the boardroom of Stanton Enterprises was filled with sharp suits and sharper voices. At the head of the long mahogany table sat Ethan Stanton, the 34-year-old millionaire CEO whose name had once stood as a symbol of ruthless precision and power. Tonight, however, that name was poisoned by scandal. "Your silence is destroying us, Ethan," snapped one board member. "The tabloids are calling you a fraud. Investors want a family man, not a bachelor whose face is splashed across every gossip column." Ethan's jaw tightened. Weeks ago, a photograph of him leaving a late-night charity gala with an unknown woman had ignited a wildfire of rumors. Rivals twisted the story into whispers of insider trading and reckless personal indulgence. Reporters circled like vultures, waiting for Stanton Enterprises to collapse under its own secrets. "Marriage," said another voice, calm but firm. "It is the only way to silence them. A wife. A respectable woman by your side. Someone who makes you appear grounded, steady, untouchable." The suggestion hung in the air like a verdict. Ethan leaned back in his leather chair, expression unreadable. A marriage? To him, love had always been a distraction, a weakness. His empire was built on contracts, numbers, and control, not on emotion. But tonight, control was slipping from his grasp. Down in a modest neighborhood of Brooklyn, Anna Brooks was finishing her second shift at the diner. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as she untied her apron and rubbed the soreness from her wrists. She was 26, with tired eyes that still carried a spark of defiance. Every dollar she earned was counted twice, saved carefully in a coffee tin at home. Her younger brother needed surgery, and hospital bills had become an avalanche she could not outrun. When she opened her locker, a crumpled hospital invoice stared back at her. She pressed it to her chest, whispering a silent promise. "I will find a way, Ben. I swear I will." Fate was already setting its stage. While Anna trudged through the wet streets, Ethan's driver waited outside a discreet law office. Inside, Ethan gave a curt nod to his attorney. "Draft the papers. A 1-year contract. She signs, we marry, the scandal ends. Payment up front, no strings, no emotions." The attorney adjusted his glasses. "Do you have a candidate in mind?" Ethan's eyes narrowed, his mind calculating. Somewhere in this city of millions, he needed a woman invisible enough to disappear from headlines once the act was complete, but strong enough to endure the storm that came with his name. Meanwhile, Anna stopped beneath a broken streetlight, clutching her umbrella against the wind. She had no idea her path was already bending toward his. A man whose empire was built on silence would soon collide with a woman whose every heartbeat screamed survival. And neither of them knew that what began as a paper marriage would end as the only truth either of them had ever known. Ethan Stanton did not believe in chance. He believed in deals, in calculated risks, in writing his own fate with the stroke of a pen. That night, in the high-rise office where the city lights glowed like restless fireflies below, he laid the foundations of his most unconventional bargain. The attorney placed a thick folder on the desk. Marriage contract. 1 year. A clean termination clause at the end. No obligations outside public appearances. Payment upon signing. Ethan flipped through the pages, his expression carved in stone. He saw nothing romantic here, only clauses and signatures, another transaction to restore order to his empire. Still, a detail caught his attention. She must be ordinary, no models, no actresses. Someone so unremarkable the press cannot dig into her past. The attorney nodded. "I will make discreet inquiries." Meanwhile, Anna Brooks stood at the counter of a pharmacy in Brooklyn, clutching a bottle of discounted cough medicine. Her younger brother Ben was struggling to breathe at night, and every small purchase felt like a choice between necessity and despair. The pharmacist recognized her weary face and whispered, Anna, you cannot keep skipping meals for him. You will collapse before he does. Anna forced a smile. Ben comes first, always. Later that week, as she left the diner after a long shift, a sleek black sedan pulled up beside the curb. A man in a gray suit stepped out, holding a business card. Miss Brooks, my employer would like to discuss an arrangement, one that could resolve your financial difficulties. Her first instinct was fear. I do not do arrangements, she said, gripping her worn purse. But then the man handed her the card. Stanton Enterprises, the name that filled the newspapers, the same man every news anchor accused of arrogance and scandal. Her stomach turned. Why would someone like him need anything from someone like her? The next morning, Anna found herself seated across from Ethan in a private conference room, the city skyline sprawling behind him. He was more intimidating in person, every line of his suit immaculate, every movement deliberate. His voice was low, controlled. I need a wife, not in truth, but on paper. 1 year. You will attend events, smile when cameras flash, and keep silent when you feel tempted to speak. Me-century, Anna's brows furrowed. You cannot be serious. Marriage is not a costume you wear for the public. Ethan leaned forward, sliding a check across the table. The numbers printed there nearly stole her breath. It was the exact sum her brother's surgery required, down to the last cent. I am very serious, he said coldly. Think of it as a business transaction. You get what you need. I get what I need. Nothing more. She stared at the paper, her pulse racing. This was salvation wrapped in arrogance. But accepting meant chaining herself to a man who looked at her as though she were another entry in his ledger. Anna whispered, almost to herself. 1 year, and then it ends? 1 year, Ethan confirmed. After that, we dissolve the contract. No complications, no attachment. Her hand trembled as she reached for the pen. The ink felt heavier than any burden she had ever carried. She signed her name. Ethan took the folder, closed it with a snap, and extended a small velvet box. Inside lay a diamond ring so flawless it looked unreal. This is for appearances, he said. Anna touched it carefully, the stone cold against her skin. For the world, it would be a symbol of love. For her, it was nothing more than a cage disguised as jewelry. Yet as she slid it onto her finger, something unexpected flickered in Ethan's gaze. For the briefest second, the mask of the untouchable CEO cracked, and she thought she saw a man watching not a contract bride, but a woman he could not yet understand. Outside the room, the city roared on. Inside, 2 signatures had bound 2 strangers together, not by love, but by desperation, and the performance of a lifetime was about to begin. The news broke like thunder. Every media outlet in New York City had the same headline: Ethan Stanton marries mysterious woman in surprise ceremony. The photographs splashed across glossy covers showed Ethan in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, his arm around Anna, who wore a modest cream dress chosen more for its simplicity than glamour. Her shy smile looked almost accidental, yet it was the very image the tabloids devoured. Now, 1 week later, they stood side by side at a grand charity gala in the Plaza Hotel. Chandeliers glittered above them, cameras flashed like lightning, and the crowd buzzed with curiosity. Anna's heart hammered against her ribs as a reporter shouted, "Mrs. Stanton, how does it feel to be married to the city's most eligible bachelor?" Her lips parted, but words tangled in her throat. Before she could falter, Ethan slipped his hand around her waist and answered with effortless charm. "She feels exactly how I feel, fortunate." The crowd laughed, their pens scribbling. For a moment, Anna wondered if anyone could see the truth, if anyone could sense that beneath the diamonds and champagne lay a contract signed in desperation. Ethan guided her toward the ballroom, his grip steady, his voice low enough only she could hear. "Smile, every lens is watching. You are not Anna Brooks tonight. You are Anna Stanton." Anna forced her lips into a delicate curve, though her palms were damp. She was a waitress pretending to be a queen, and the weight of that masquerade nearly crushed her. Still, when Ethan led her to the dance floor, her steps surprised even herself. She moved in rhythm with him, and the room erupted in applause. From the edge of the crowd, an elderly board member whispered, "Look at them. The scandal is over. He has done it." But Anna caught Ethan's eyes for a fleeting second, and what she saw was not triumph. It was irritation, as if her natural grace had outshone his calculated performance. Later that evening, during dinner, a young heiress leaned across the table. "Mrs. Stanton, we have heard so little about you. Where did you and Ethan first meet?" Anna froze. That question had not been in the script. Her mind raced. She could not say, "in a contract meeting." She could not reveal the truth. Her pulse thundered in her ears until Ethan placed his hand over hers, grounding her. "At a bookstore," he said smoothly. "She had her nose in a novel and nearly walked straight into me. I decided it was fate." The guests laughed warmly, charmed by the story. Anna glanced at him, startled. He had lied so easily, yet his lie carried a softness that unsettled her. She almost wished it had been true. After the event, as they stepped into the limousine, Anna exhaled a long breath. "You should not have said that. It makes it sound real." Ethan loosened his tie, his voice cool. "That is the point. The more real it looks, the more effective at Island." She turned toward the window, the city lights streaking past. Somewhere deep inside, a quiet ache grew. For the world, she was Mrs. Stanton. A woman admired and envied. But when the cameras turned away, she was still Anna Brooks, a sister scraping every dollar to save her brother. Yet tonight, for the first time, she felt the dangerous pull of the illusion. The warmth of his hand on hers, the ease of his voice when he lied about the bookstore, the fleeting look in his eyes when they danced. All of it whispered that this contract might become something neither of them had planned. The masquerade had only just begun, and already the line between pretense and reality was beginning to blur. The penthouse was a fortress of glass and steel, perched above the restless hum of Manhattan. From the outside, it looked like a palace, but inside, the silence was suffocating. Anna carried her small suitcase into the master suite, her footsteps echoing across polished marble floors. She felt like an intruder trespassing in a museum rather than a bride entering her new home. Ethan stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring at the skyline as though it belonged to him alone. "This is temporary," he said without turning. "You have a room down the hall. We keep our distance. The press will see us when they need to, and that is all." Anna tightened her grip on the handle of her suitcase. "Do you always issue instructions like you are running a board meeting?" His gaze flicked toward her, sharp and cool. "Do you always question what you agreed to?" The tension snapped like an invisible wire between them. Anna moved down the hall and found the guest room he mentioned. It was larger than her entire apartment in Brooklyn, yet it felt colder than any space she had ever known. She unpacked quietly, placing her few belongings into drawers that swallowed them whole. A folded sketchbook, her brother's photograph, and a small jar of coins, the fragments of her real life, looked painfully out of place among the expensive furniture. Days blurred into a strange rhythm. Mornings began with Ethan leaving early, his schedule consumed by board meetings and damage control. Nights ended with Anna alone at the long dining table, the echo of her fork against porcelain the only sound in the cavernous penthouse. She began cooking simple meals, recipes her mother once taught her. At first, Ethan ignored them, choosing instead to sip whiskey in silence. But one evening, the aroma of roasted chicken drifted through the air, and he found himself drawn to the table. "You did this?" he asked, glancing at the perfectly browned dish. Anna nodded. "It is called dinner. Some people eat it together." His lips twitched, almost a smile, though it vanished before it could form. He sat, tasted, and for a brief moment the mask slipped. "It has been years since I had food like this." The smallest crack in his armor unsettled Anna more than his coldness ever could. Later that night, she found him in the library, not with a report or balance sheet, but listening to a vinyl record spinning softly. The melody was old, a song her parents used to play on the radio. She leaned against the doorframe, surprised. "I did not think you listened to anything that was not strategy or profit." Ethan's eyes stayed on the spinning record. "Once, a long time ago, I did. Then I forgot." She stepped inside, her voice gentle. "Maybe you just needed someone to remind you." The air shifted between them. No cameras, no reporters, no board members. Just a man and a woman, trapped in a contract but caught in a moment that felt dangerously real. Ethan shut the record player off abruptly, retreating behind the wall of indifference. "Do not mistake this for something it is not, Anna. We have an agreement, nothing more." Anna lifted her chin. "You keep saying that, but you are the one who keeps breaking your own rules." She walked out, leaving him alone with the silence and the faint echo of a melody he had tried to forget. That night, Ethan lay awake, staring at the ceiling. For years he had lived like a machine, controlled and untouchable. Yet now, a woman who entered his life as a transaction was planting seeds of something he did not recognize. He told himself it was irritation, nothing more. But in the quiet hours of the night, even Ethan Stanton could not ignore the truth creeping into his guarded heart. And Anna, alone in her guest room, whispered to the photograph of her brother, "I do not know if I can survive a year of this, because every day it feels less like an act, and more like a storm I cannot stop." The weeks passed, and the lines of their agreement began to blur. What had started as staged appearances and cold silences slowly shifted into something Anna could not quite define. It happened first at a press conference. Reporters fired questions like arrows, circling Ethan about the scandal and his competence as CEO. One voice cut through the noise, sharp and mocking. "Mr. Stanton, is it true your so-called wife is just a cover story? That she is nothing more than a waitress playing dress-up?" Anna felt her blood run cold. Her instinct told her to stay silent, to obey the contract, and let Ethan's well-trained tongue handle the storm. But when she saw the flicker of disdain in the reporter's eyes, something inside her rose up. She stepped forward, her voice steady, though her knees trembled. "Do you think a woman's worth is decided by where she works? I may have served coffee and carried plates, but I have also cared for a sick brother, balanced 3 jobs, and survived without the safety net most of you take for granted. If that makes me unworthy, then maybe it says more about your standards than mine." Ballers. The room fell silent, cameras flashing wildly. Even Ethan turned toward her, startled. In that moment, she was not the pawn in his carefully crafted game. She was fire, unapologetic and undeniable. When they returned to the limousine, Ethan's voice was tight. "You broke the rules. You were supposed to remain silent." Anna met his gaze, refusing to back down. "And if I had, they would have torn us both apart. Sometimes silence is not strength, Ethan. Sometimes silence is surrender." He leaned back against the seat, studying her with an intensity that unsettled her. For years he had dominated rooms with power, yet a single speech from her had turned the board's skepticism into thunderous applause. She had done what he could not, she had humanized him. That night, Ethan could not sleep. He walked through the penthouse and found himself staring at a framed photograph on the mantel. It was not his, but hers, the picture of her brother, that she had placed there without asking permission. Somehow, that small act had transformed his sterile home into something warmer. He whispered to himself, "She is not supposed to matter." But the thought echoed hollow in the quiet. The paparazzi soon seized on the image of Ethan looking at Anna with something unguarded in his eyes. Photographs appeared in magazines, captioned with speculation about a love that seemed too authentic to be staged. Ethan dismissed them as noise. Yet when he saw the images himself, he could not deny the truth. The way his gaze lingered on her was not the look of a man protecting an investment. It was something far more dangerous. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Ethan returned to find Anna sitting cross-legged on the balcony, sketchbook in hand. She was drawing the skyline, her pencil strokes delicate yet confident. "You draw?" he asked, surprised. She glanced up, startled. "It helps me breathe." He studied her quietly, then stepped closer. "Show me." She hesitated, then turned the page toward him. It was not the buildings that struck him. It was the way she had drawn the sky. Fierce, alive, uncontainable, just like her. For the first time in years, Ethan felt the walls around him crack. He reached out as if to touch the page, but his hand lingered in the air, trembling with restraint. "You see the world differently," he murmured. Anna smiled faintly. "Maybe you just forgot how to look." He walked away before she could see how much her words unsettled him. But inside, Ethan Stanton, the man who built his empire on control, was losing his grip. What had begun as a paper contract was slowly transforming into something real, something neither of them had signed up for. And for the first time in his life, Ethan feared not the press, not the board, not his rivals. He feared his own heart. The storm came without warning. One Monday morning, As Ethan prepared for a crucial board meeting, his assistant rushed into the office carrying a tabloid magazine. The headline screamed across the cover: Stanton's bride exposed, waitress, bartender, gold digger. Photographs of Anna in her diner uniform filled the pages, accompanied by a distorted narrative. Anonymous sources claimed she had dated wealthy patrons for tips, that she had pursued Ethan only for money. The articles twisted her long hours of survival into stories of seduction. By the time Anna saw the headlines, her phone was buzzing nonstop. Strangers hurled insults across social media, reporters camped outside the penthouse, and television anchors dissected her character as if she were public property. She stood frozen in the kitchen, clutching the magazine until her knuckles turned white. Ethan entered moments later, his expression unreadable. "The board is demanding action," he said flatly. "They believe this scandal could destroy the company's recovery." Her voice cracked. "And what do you believe, Ethan? Do you think I am what they say?" For the first time, his mask faltered. A muscle in his jaw twitched, but his words were cold. "Perception matters more than truth. Right now, perception says you are a liability." Her chest tightened, as if the walls were closing in. "A liability? I gave up my privacy, my life, for your image. I stood beside you while they judged me. And now you stand there and let them erase me with a headline?" His silence was louder than any accusation. On his desk lay a fresh document annulment papers. He slid them across the table without meeting her eyes. "The sooner this ends, the better for both of us," he said. Anna stared at the papers, her vision blurring. Her hand reached for the wedding ring, the diamond that had always felt cold against her skin. She pulled it off and placed it on the table, her voice breaking. "It was never real to you, was it? Just a transaction?" She turned and walked out before he could answer. The sound of the door, slamming, echoed through the penthouse, leaving Ethan alone in the silence he had once craved. That evening, Anna packed her belongings in the guest room. Her sketchbook, her brother's photograph, her jar of coins, they all fit into a single worn suitcase. As she zipped it shut, tears streamed down her face. She whispered to the photograph, "I tried, Ben. I really tried. But I cannot stay where I am not wanted." She left the penthouse under the cover of night, slipping past the reporters gathered at the front entrance. For the first time in months, she breathed the air of freedom, though it carried the bitter taste of heartbreak. Back inside, Ethan poured himself a glass of whiskey. He told himself it was for the best, that he had protected the company, the shareholders, the empire he had built. Yet when his eyes landed on the abandoned ring glinting on the desk, he felt something he could not name. He picked it up, turning it in his fingers. For the first time, the flawless diamond looked like a lie. In the empty penthouse, Ethan Stanton realized the truth he had tried to bury. He had lost the only thing that had ever been real. And this time, no contract, no boardroom, no empire could fix it. The man who had everything was left with nothing but silence, and the echo of a woman's footsteps walking away. Ethan Stanton was a man accustomed to control, but in the days after Anna left, control became a foreign concept. The penthouse felt like a mausoleum, each silent room a reminder of her absence. He tried to bury himself in work, but the board's whispers grew louder. His rivals were circling, emboldened by the scandal. Then came the discovery. Late one night, his most trusted advisor placed a confidential file on his desk. Inside were records tracing the source of the smear campaign. Every fabricated story, every leaked photograph, every anonymous quote, they all led back to a single competitor, a ruthless executive who had orchestrated the scandal to fracture Ethan's company. And Anna had been the perfect target. Ethan's chest tightened as he read the documents. The narrative painted her as guilty, but the truth was stark. She had been collateral damage in a war aimed at him. She had borne the weight of his enemies' lies, and he had let her walk away believing she was the problem. For the first time in years, Ethan felt something more powerful than ambition: shame. He closed the file, leaning back in his chair. The image of Anna defending herself at the press conference haunted him. She had stood tall, unafraid, while he had hidden behind silence and strategy. He remembered her words. Sometimes silence is surrender. She had been right, and he had surrendered her to protect an empire built on appearances. Now the empire was still at risk, but the woman who had unknowingly saved it was gone. Ethan pressed his palms against his eyes, whispering into the darkness. "I let her go, the only real thing I ever had. and I let her go. The weight of his realization crushed him. For years he had believed that reputation was everything, that power and perception defined his worth. But without Anna, the titles, the wealth, the skyscraper opposite, it all felt empty. He picked up the ring she had left behind, the diamond catching the faint city light. It was meant to symbolize perfection, but now it mocked him, a reminder of a contract that had become something more. He clenched it in his fist, vowing that if he ever had another chance, he would not let paper or power dictate the terms of his heart. For the first time, Ethan Stanton understood that leadership was not silence, and love was not control. Both required truth. And truth meant facing the world with Anna by his side. Or not at all. The following week, the Stanton Enterprises annual shareholder meeting filled the grand ballroom of a midtown hotel. Cameras lined the back wall, reporters poised with pens and microphones. For days, rumors had spread that Ethan Stanton was preparing to resign, that the scandal had crushed both his company and his reputation. Ethan walked onto the stage, the weight of the past months heavy on his shoulders. He looked out at the sea of faces, investors hungry for reassurance, journalists eager for blood, and board members who had once threatened to strip him of power. He adjusted the microphone, his voice steady though his heart thundered. You have read the headlines. You have heard the accusations. And yes, it is true, my marriage began as a contract. Gasps rippled through the room. Cameras flashed in rapid bursts. For years, Ethan had been a master of concealment, but today he had chosen exposure. He continued, his gaze unwavering. I thought I could control perception with a signature and a ring. I thought a paper agreement could silence a scandal. But I was wrong. Because the woman I married did not just play a role. She stood by me when no one else would. She faced the press when I hid. She defended my name when I was too proud to defend hers. And in doing so, she gave me something I had forgotten existed: truth. A murmur spread among the audience, not of ridicule but of intrigue. Ethan pressed forward, his voice deep with conviction. If this costs me my position, so be it. If it costs me my reputation, I accept it. But I will not lose her. Not again. 2. The room erupted with questions, but Ethan did not wait. He stepped down from the stage, ignoring the chaos, and walked straight through the hotel lobby where more reporters swarmed. Are you admitting you deceived the public? Are you in love with her? Voices shouted. He stopped only once, meeting the nearest camera head-on. Yes, I love her. And I would give up every board seat, every dollar, every ounce of power to prove it. Sixball. The declaration was broadcast across every network, carried into living rooms, offices, and city streets. Somewhere in Brooklyn, Anna watched the screen in stunned silence, her brother Ben beside her. She had expected Ethan to bury the truth, to sacrifice her for his empire. Instead, he had chosen her over everything he had built. Her heart ached with both disbelief and hope. For the first time, she wondered if the man behind the contract had finally stepped into the light. The day after Ethan's declaration, New York was buzzing. News anchors replayed his words on every channel. Headlines shifted from scandal to CEO's public confession of love. Critics were divided, but the public response was overwhelming. Investors, once doubtful, now admired his candor. For the first time, Ethan Stanton was not praised for his power, but for his honesty. Anna sat by the window of her small Brooklyn apartment, the television still glowing in the background. She traced her finger over the rim of her coffee mug, her thoughts tangled. For months she had been paraded as a pawn, discarded as a liability. Yet in front of the entire world, Ethan had chosen her, not as a shield, not as a contract, but as the truth. A knock on the door broke her thoughts. When she opened it, Ethan stood there, rain clinging to his hair and coat. He held no entourage, no lawyer, no contract, only a velvet box in his hand. "Anna," he said softly, his voice stripped of pride. "I came with nothing to offer you but myself. No paper, no conditions, just me." Her heart pounded as he opened the box. Inside was not the flawless diamond ring he had once given her, but a simple gold band. "This is not about perfection," Ethan continued. "It is about permanence. I failed you when I treated love like a negotiation. But I will not fail again. If you let me, I want this marriage to be real. Not because the world demands it, but because I do. Tears blurred her vision. She remembered the cold penthouse, the boardroom orders, the weight of being invisible. And yet, standing here, she also remembered the man who had listened to her defend herself, the man who had confessed on live television, the man who was finally learning to choose truth over power. She placed her hand over his, steadying the box. Ethan, you do not need a perfect wife, and I do not need a perfect husband. I just need someone who sees me. If you are ready to do that, then I am ready too. Relief washed over his features, more profound than any corporate victory. He slipped the gold band onto her finger, his hands trembling, not from fear, but from reverence. In that small Brooklyn apartment, far from the glare of cameras and the roar of boardrooms, Ethan and Anna sealed a vow that no contract could contain. From paper to forever, the masquerade had ended. What remained was love, raw and unshakable, a promise written not in ink but in the choices they would make every day. And for the first time, Ethan Stanton did not fear the future, because this time he would face it not alone, but with Anna by his side.